Okay, it's 7 o'clock. If you're wondering, that's the official time over there, see? And call a regular meeting of the Buchanan City Council to order. Ask you to join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Let's respect the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have Wesleyan college students here. Show of hands. Just one?
My goodness, it's the last of the semester.
I guess. Well, you got to do the drill. We ask you to stand up and face the camera and tell us your name, where you're from, what your major is, please.
My name is Ryan Peltway. I'm from Miami, Florida, and I major in accounting.
Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Raise. Mr. Poley? No?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Poley. CM Poley? No?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Charge. Who's speaking?
Two of our members of the FSRG Raise Group would just like just a moment. We promise it will just be a moment of your time. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, we are here representing the FSRG Raise Group at the high school, a student-led initiative against big tobacco. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the City Council for the recent passage of the smoking ban. An approximate 50,000 people will die over the course of a year as a result of secondhand smoke. So thank you for making your constituents more than just a statistic.
Likewise, I would like to thank all of you, each and every one, in your cooperation with the community and with FSRG Raise and everybody else that's been proactive in this cause. I would like to thank you on behalf of Buchanan Upshur High School, FSRG Raise, the children, young adults, and seniors of the city of Buchanan. We really appreciate all of your effort, all of your work, and your desire to see this bill passed just as badly as we wanted it passed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for not throwing in the towel when things got a little rough. So thank you very much. If we might please give our council members their towels.
Mateo,
Really.
could you have them all stand so we can get them on the camera?
Yes, please.
All of your students.
My group, please. Stand where you are.
Smile. Very nice.
Just get this right here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
What does FFRG stand for?
Freeman Sheldon Research Group, which is our sponsor for our Raise Group. Thank you for asking. And not to be rude, but we have tennis, baseball, softball, wax, and some other items this evening, so if we might be excused and give you a little more space.
Well, let me say one thing before you go, is I appreciate so much the youth coming and expressing what their concerns are. You're the future of our country, of our city, our county, and our country. And believe it or not, I think that had you all not come, we would not perhaps pass this as much, even sooner than we did now. It's comforting to see you guys here and to know that our country's going to be in some really good hands in the future. Thanks again, and if there's any other issues, this place is always open for you.
Oh, very kind. We thank you very much for your support. Thank you for making us healthy, Upshur County. We appreciate it.
We can close that.
We can go. See, show. So we get a Is Chris Eddy here, or was
Chris Eddy.
That was,
He just talked.
Okay,
Just
all right.
talked.
When's that like?
Broken back on Monday?
Right, good man. Department reports, Michael Doss offers this. He had to be out of town. I also know that Pam Capari is not with us this evening. She's a new grandmother. She's got a little bouncing baby boy today, and I think she's on her way to wherever he is. Michael would want you to know, and you have it in your packet, I don't think I'm going to read all this to you. There's a health insurance update, an update on the conference center at Brushy Fork, new business that we've gotten a bid on a Pocahontas Street curbing job, Lowe's Water and Sewer Extension loan, additional insurance coverage. He would have you to know that in light of the events in Boston earlier this week, I've added terrorism coverage to our insurance policy. It's $1,100 more annually. West Virginia University Comprehensive Plan update. They're continuing to work on there, and there's a scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission May the 7th at 6 p.m.
He does ask for a motion on Pocahontas Street.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Received a bid from Minority Manpower to provide 3,380 lineal feet of concrete curbing on Pocahontas Street in the amount of $39,579.80. Would need a motion from council to approve that contract.
So moved.
Second. And a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Then on the reverse of that, you have a couple notes from Mitch Tacey. Festival committees requested to use the parking lot at the fire station for vendor and supply truck parking. They've done it in the past, but it's always a chore to get everything moved or not for a fireman's parade parking. Also on Saturday of the parade, we're having a fundraiser, and we need the entire lot. He says they'll need to find other parking for their vehicles this year. Also, talked to Brad Montgomery about the use of Spring Street from Main towards Post Office. Last year, they put vendors right up against the apartments owned by Mary Hall. She was not too happy, and honestly, I don't blame her. It would have been impossible to get to the building in case of fire. There's no way we could have rescued people from windows if needed. Those apartments scare me anyway. I told Brad maybe they should move to the other side of the street. Anyway, my point is I respectfully request they do not do as they did last year. Also, the fire department would like to close South Florida from Main to East Lincoln after the fireman's parade for parking of fire trucks. We did it last year and it worked well. We'll also park fire trucks on Main Street from Spring to South Florida after the fireman's parade. This also helps the festival folks in closing of Main Street. I don't think we need a motion for that.
No,
Comment?
on the parking with the vendors right up next to the apartment buildings here, they weren't supposed to be there last year.
No, and we're supposed to be scheduling a meeting with them unless they had it. Anybody know, did they meet this week? Festival committee. We'll get them together here early next week. Matt, you didn't meet with the festival committee or the festival folks this week?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll get that on and we'll take some of these concerns to them. Sam Ludlow, city engineer, senior.
I don't like that.
Neither does Jeff.
You can call me Junior. Okay, the sanitary board did meet this afternoon. Items discussed, Michael had prepared a budget for presentation to the board for their review for the next meeting. We talked some more about the MPDS permit appeal. I think at the last meeting, we knew that we were reaching settlement. We know how that's turned out a little bit better. There is an order that has given us some significant relief on one issue, the toxic pollutants, heavy metals, which more particularly was copper. DEP agreed to double our permit limit from 4 to 8, which we can manage that level. We've had, I think, one instance in the last 15 years where we had a 9. Most of the time we're in the 2 to 5 range, so that limit is something that we can meet. So that issue, which was one of our major concerns, the toxic pollutants. Another issue was the oxygen demand parameters, and which have been made more severe repeatedly over the years, and we're going from a limited 10 parts per million down to 3 parts per million. And they didn't give us any immediate relief, but they have agreed to allow us to review their procedure in establishing those limits. And we are working with a consultant out of Washington, D.C., engineering expert in sewage treatment, advanced sewage treatment. And he has made some preliminary review. His review certainly isn't complete, but he's identified some factors in their process that we believe we can negotiate with, that we can negotiate those factors with DEP. And we do have information that we've been trying to seek, or we've been seeking for some time, relative to the process by which they establish the limits. So we think that there's real possibility that we will be able to get some relief on that point as well. And if we do get relief on those 2 points, I think that we will be very well satisfied with the effort of our appeal. We had some discussion about our combined sewer overflows, and we continue to make efforts to minimize extraneous flow into our system, and we had some discussion on ways that we can encourage Tenerton Public Service District, which discharges into our system, to also take that issue very seriously and make active efforts to minimize their extraneous flow into the sewer system. Extraneous flow being any rainwater, surface water that gets into the sanitary sewer system. There's separate storm sewers which go directly to the river, and that's where storm water should go, roof drains, yard drains, gutters. It's not appropriate for it to go into the sanitary sewer. We talked about the Weston Road sewer extension. We have employed an engineering firm, Potesta Associates, to assist us with that project. We have provided them with mapping. They have gotten that mapping and are beginning to work with it. We've made some contacts with potential parties affected by the project. I believe that their representatives will be, Potesta's representatives will be in Buchanan next week, and we'll try to work on some of the layout. Our line crew is working on a storm sewer on part of the Ritchie Street storm sewer project, working on some collector storm drains on Pocahontas Street, actually putting in drop inlets at the intersection of Ritchie and Pocahontas. We had a sewer complaint on Rigger Street that tied us up for most of 2 weeks. Have a deep sewer, and we found that a customer had several complaints, and turned out to be, as we investigated it, to be on our service line from the main collector to their property line. And when we started to dig it up, we found that there was a high-pressure gas line over top of our sewer. Our sewer was built in '60, and the gas line was located there in 1980, 20 years later. And it really prevented us from renewing the line that went down. Our line was 10 feet deep, their line was maybe 3 to 4 feet deep, and we couldn't dig down on our line. So we had to get a right of way from a neighbor and just relocate the sewer. And we're in the process of identifying to the gas company that they might, it was a transmission gas company, not Mountaineer Gas, that they might have some responsibility in assisting us if other events like that would occur. And we're also working to upgrade the electrical service to the Elias pump station. It's a particularly vulnerable station due to flooding problems at the location of our wet well. And we think we've suffered some problems there in the past because of that, and we're doing some upgrades to minimize that hazard. And that was all.
Question for Sam? Thank you, Sam. Tom or Kelly? Tom, water plant.
From the water board, we discussed, as Sam has, it's budget season time. We have sat down, Kelly and I, with Michael, and prepared and submitted a proposed budget for the board's approval at our next meeting. So that is in process, waiting on our next meeting for final approval of that. Annually, we incur a health department inspection at the plant. Every 3 years, they do a system-wide inspection, which would include Kelly's distribution. Annually, they do the water plant. I'm pleased to report things went very well with that inspection. There were no deficiencies. Last year, we had a moderate to minor deficiency with one of our storage tank issues, which our city engineer, Jay Holland, was working on to remediate. Some of the areas, but not all the areas, to give you an idea of what they look at just at the plant, our compliance monitoring, we have a schedule sent from Charleston. Most of our samples are collected out in distribution, depending on whether it's a quarterly requirement or monthly requirement. Some things are seasonal, depends on that may have byproducts of agricultural activity. Those are done in the second quarter. In our compliance monitoring, though, they do review that, make sure we're doing everything we need to do. They look at our operator certification, make sure we have proper certified operators for the facility we have, and that we're staffed accordingly to be able to do a smooth operation. They look at our backflow program, which Kelly runs, and they commended him for his efforts in that area. They look at our standard operating procedures within the plant, how we do things in a consistent manner from one shift to another, from one day to another, make recommendations. They look at our safety, particularly with the hazardous chemicals that the operators may incur. They review that with us on an annual basis. They look at our treatment processes to make sure they're functioning properly and the finished water quality is within standards, state and federal standards, and I'm pleased to report we far exceed those standards annually. We do a very good job with that. And also they look at our source water. Our source water is the Buchanan River. They make sure the quality and quantity is there for the future growth of our city and county. And those are just some areas that we get reviewed annually for the health department. Starting Monday, Kelly has reported we will start receiving the material for the Armory project. So he's made arrangements to receive that and have equipment there to help unload it. Some of it's pretty heavy equipment, or pretty heavy material. There at the Cinema Road, they've completed a tie-in to prepare the start of the project. So they've got basically everything ready to go, just to start opening the trench and start laying the line. If you haven't noticed, this week they've started their hydrant flushing. We do that twice a year in the spring and the fall. Kelly reports are about 80% complete for this session of hydrant flushing, something we're required to do as a maintenance of the distribution. Operator certification, Kelly has had 2 of his men receive water distribution or WD certification, which is requirements by the health department. I believe that concludes all his employees. They're all now properly certified. On my side, I had our latest hire, operator in training, received his Class 1 certification. He's eligible for that within a year, and he completed that in a timely fashion. So we'll continue his, not only his education, but his training to get him up to par. He needs to be a Class 3. Right now, he's a Class 1, but he's on schedule to achieve that certification. This week, we had a preliminary inspection of our set basin. We have some concrete issues, some cracks that we're a little bit concerned about before we do a plan for the future about replacing some obsolete or outdated equipment. We want to make sure the structure is sound before we make those investments. Mr. Holland has worked bringing in some folks to take a preliminary inspection of that for temporary repairs. We'd like this summer to do a temporary fix to stop the damage from getting any worse until we come up with a final plan on how we're going to approach permanent repairs. So the preliminary inspections were done. On May the 1st, we're going to be cleaning that said basin. We do that twice a year in the spring and fall. What that said basin does is collect sludge from our treatment processes. We have to remove that sludge so it doesn't build up, become septic, or interfere or short circuit with our treatment processes. At that time, we will have more engineering consultants to come in. They'll actually be able to go inside the basin and get a bird's eye view from inside and out. And I'm sure Jay will have guidelines that he requests from them for a follow-up report, recommendations on maybe where we need to go with that project. And that's all I have. No questions.
Question for Tom? Thanks, Tom. Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Mayor. Several updates and then a couple of new things to take up with you under your new business. I'm pleased to report that the thumbs up was given by the West Virginia Armory Board last week that we were ready to circulate the agreement. Scott Barnett, General Counsel for the West Virginia Military Authority, had 3 or 4 very minor changes to the last draft that I had proposed. You might recall we've been going back and forth since November to try to get this thing hammered out, and I think there's been probably a half a dozen drafts with language added here and there, including one substantial provision at the urging of our bond counsel relative to making the Municipal Building Commission a party to this lease agreement. The lease agreement that has been executed by all of the parties except the State Armory Board is in your packet this evening. The 4 parties again are the City of Buchanan, the City of Buchanan's Building Commission, which actually is the owner of the lease, if you will, under the bonds that will be issued soon as we close with the United States Department of Agriculture on that loan that we're taking. The Upshur County Convention and Visitors Bureau, which previously the council designated that body as the overseer, if you will, of the facility, that is of the convention center part of the Armory. And then lastly, the Armory Board itself. There is a provision in the state code that requires a sign-off, approval as to form by the West Virginia Attorney General's office. I asked Scott Barnett about that, and he said it's very perfunctory. It's an administrative task. It's not like we're going to have our lease reviewed by the Attorney General's office. They'll be fine with it. So that's very good news. In the Hissom suit, you have in your packet tonight, I don't want to steal thunder for one of the new matters that we're going to take up, but an answer has been filed on behalf of the City of Buchanan to that complaint, which was filed in federal district court, the Northern District, back on January 9th. But the city of Buchanan was not served until the very end of March. So if you're wondering, if there was some discussion in January about this, we knew that it was coming, but for whatever reason, the plaintiff in the action waylaid almost 3 months the service of the complaint upon us. So that's when our 20-day period commenced. Another matter that you have in your packet as a discussional item at this point, and this would follow the emerging trend in West Virginia. There were 2 bills, one in the Senate and one in the House, that did not get out of committee. There were extensive hearings on the matter relative to making orientation a new protected class under West Virginia state law. The equivalent in West Virginia of the Equal Employment Opportunity Act is a thing called the West Virginia Human Rights Act. And just like there is an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that oversees equal employment opportunity stuff, the Americans with Disability Act, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978, and some others, we have a catch-all body that at the state level does similar things. 37 states in the United States have accorded employment protection to people based upon their orientation. West Virginia is not one of those states. The West Virginia Human Rights Commission actually lobbied the state legislature during the recently ended session to amend the West Virginia Fair Housing Act as well as the West Virginia Human Rights Act. Again, extensive discussion, debate, hearings on it, but neither house ended up passing the bill, rather tabling it until the next session. The resolution that you would be asked to consider as early as the next meeting would do a couple of things. Following the trend with the cities of Morgantown, Charleston, Harpers Ferry, and others, this resolution, if you acted favorably upon it, would accomplish 2 things, one of which would add orientation to a protection for people who were employed with the city of Buchanan. That's been done again by a number of other cities in West Virginia, but not by Buchanan. Last year when we adopted the initial employee manual, orientation was not then included in that. Mr. Doss supports adding that as one of the classes that people would not be discriminated against based upon that. The second part of this resolution would be to encourage the West Virginia legislature to seriously consider adopting the state laws to accord protections against discrimination for people based upon their orientation. So I would ask, I guess one of your homework assignments, if you will, between now and the May meetings would be to look at this and consider it and maybe come back with some discussion at the next meeting. I don't know if Councilman Waltz has any, I'd be glad to defer to you. You brought this to our attention.
Yeah, I met with some folks that were meeting with people at West Virginia Wesleyan College, obviously, about this issue, and certainly work in and around several gay and lesbian colleagues, also students who brought this to my attention as well. And I think in a fair way, this is a really great way for Buchanan to say we want to be progressive and on this issue. I don't think it's a overly aggressive piece of legislation. I think it's a make sense kind of piece of legislation as I reviewed it, and I think what Dave has written here would be a very fair way for our city to say we don't accept people being discriminated against.
As I was doing some research on this resolution to try to come up with some language, I stole some things from Charleston. This is a newsflash after 30 years. Nothing that I have ever done is completely original. I steal things from everyone else. I borrowed things from Charleston. I borrowed some things out of the Morgantown ordinance, and especially the Harpers Ferry ordinance. And when I Googled Harpers Ferry plus ordinance plus orientation, I got this, I think it was U.S. News Today, that said Harpers Ferry, of the 9,000 cities in the United States or whatever who have adopted ordinances of this sort, Harpers Ferry is the smallest incorporated city in the United States at 286 to have adopted a form of this ordinance. So that was kind of interesting. Okay, a couple other quick things and then I'll shut up. I'm still working on the electrical inspection ordinance. I did 3 or 4 hours worth of work on it this afternoon. The problem is every time I think I'm getting close to having something ready for you all to look at, I come across some other initialism organization or acronym that I don't know what it is, and then I look into it. Today, I found 4 of them that were going to be referenced in this ordinance. One is if Mitch Tacey was here, he would know what these are. The NFPA Act, which is the National Fire Protection Association Act. Of course, we know about the National Electrical Code, the NFPA 101 Life Safety Code, and the NFPA 1 Fire Code. All of these different acts, and the reason that those are important, effective July 1, 2010, 2 of those acts were adopted by the entire state of West Virginia. There was some exception language in there that said municipalities and counties may do with this what they will, or words to that effect. So you start out by thinking that the entire state of West Virginia has adopted these things. It's applicable to everybody. We don't need any ordinances. And then they kind of soften the language by saying the actual application of these are up to the individual communities. As you might expect, the cities of Wheeling, Charleston, over in the Jefferson County area, Huntington, they've been very aggressive in adopting these comprehensive codes. In our previous discussions, while we want to move toward more comprehensive building code enforcement that would include foundations, footers, electrical, plumbing, all that kind of stuff, we've had electrical inspections for a good long while. So the first step, perhaps, in moving to a more comprehensive enforcement of all of those various building codes is going to be with the electrical code. So again, I'm working on it. We'll have something to you here again relatively soon. I'm trying to make it as brief as I can. We don't want to repeat all the language and all those codes that I just quoted to you. One other matter, the smoking ban in the parks that you passed on second reading last time, that will become effective on May 4th. So you still got a couple of weeks before it would actually be effectuated. 2 other questions for you again. Residency for employees, something my load's going to free up just a little bit here in a couple of weeks with school concluding at Wesleyan. It would be something timely for me to draft ordinance-wise if that's the will of the council. We still need to have a TV cable board meeting, and fast approaching May, our Service to Youth Champion honoree, as well as the Friendly Way Day thing. I've talked with Mitch Tacey, and they'll have a name forthcoming soon for Friendly Way Day. That's all I have, unless you all have questions for me until you get to your new business.
Question?
I have a question. The electrical permits and inspections, anything, how feasible is it for us to consider all types of building permits and building inspections from plumbing on up? I have a friend who just bought a new house, has hundreds of things wrong with it that should have been taken care of. There's just shoddy work done to bypass and make more profit. Of course, it's out in the county, it's out in the city. And I understand we don't have a lot of new home constructions within the city, but perhaps this is something that we could join with the county into getting a full-time or a part-time building permit officer, increase the fees from $15 to $400 or whatever it is to cover the cost of the inspection. That's just something I'd like to have considered in the future.
Ron, you're right on track. That's what we've been talking about.
Okay.
But we've had what I think Dave was alluding to is we've had electrical inspections ongoing, and we found out that we were maybe not in compliance with state regulation.
Right, I know.
And so we can fix this part of it, and if we get proper structure in the ordinance, we can add these things as we go.
Well, we should add it.
And,
I think Mr. Doss, too, is trying to identify funding sources.
Right.
As we start to, one of the proposals you're going to see with this electric ordinance will be some fairly substantial increases in electrical inspections. It would be good if you could pay for your inspectors via these fees that would be generated. That's the purpose of these fees. It's not to generate income for the city of Buchanan so we can put more flowers out or hire another police officer. That's not the purpose of these fees. It really is supposed to go back into the purpose of the ordinance, which is for the protection of the public.
You wouldn't get a very good inspection for the fees we charge now.
Yeah, they're pretty nominal, you're right. And one of the issues that raised this for us last fall when we convened our first meetings to discuss this stuff was the electrical inspector, who is a state certified electrical inspector. What he realizes from a trip out is not anywhere near what he would make in wearing his cap as an electrician. So, yeah.
I would also make the comment based on what Ron said, that anybody in the county and the city, when you're making a purchase of a home, whether it's new or old, it's probably one of the largest, well, it could be considered an investment, but it's an investment that you're going to be living with every day, and it's a large denomination for most people. They should get, even if there's an ordinance that gets passed in the future, I think with that kind of money involved, it's really wise for them to get somebody in there to do an inspection of the plumbing, electrical work, and so forth. It's something that's well worth the time and effort to have before you purchase a home, because really the individual selling the home is represented by the real estate agent, and the buyer is out there sort of on their own. So, you know, it's buyer beware, and spend an extra $400, $500, $600 if you need to.
In counties I worked in Ohio when I was working, every county in Ohio had a building inspector in their county. And you did not move into your home until they gave it a final inspection. And indeed, for $400, $500 for the permit and everything, it will save you from having to pay $700, $800, $900 for inspections in the future. And would also keep you from being really angry at the person that provided your home for you, too.
Okay. Correspondence, request Michael Levacy to be considered counsel, Skeeter Queen considered counsel, Christine Bennett considered counsel. Strawberry Festival Association request for events, it's in your packet. And number 8 is the use of the parking lot from our food land on Spring Street for vendors and supply trucks. And Mitch is asking us not to approve that.
No, I think he's the, well, which one are we working on here? Is that the?
That's the use of the parking lot, former food land on Spring Street.
The strawberry
Vendors and supply trucks.
And I think he's talking about North Spring there, perhaps.
No, he was talking about the
Mitch is talking about the one by the firehouse.
For the firehouse.
This one's talking about North Spring.
Oh, they're asking for North Spring, I'm sorry.
I think.
Yeah, okay, Spring Street. I'll get the street straightened out here.
That was a food land before the other.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I watched it burn. Didn't have anything to do with it, I just watched it burn.
I got that on tape.
So I guess this is in order then.
Yeah, although there may be some issues as to some of the final details, but I think basically it's everything's been.
I'd entertain a motion to approve this request, subject to our meeting with the Strawberry Festival Committee.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Next page, the EMS wants permission to use ATVs on the city streets during the festival activities.
So moved.
second.
Motion made and second. Discussion? All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Consent agenda is the minutes of the regular meeting of April 4, special meeting April 16, building and wiring permits, payment of the bills, and you might want to take a look at this solicitor permit. Have you found anything out of order with that permit application, Rich?
Now, this, the reason I request him to go through this, because he wants to sell in town, and normally if they have a fixed location, we just sell them a business license. But in this case, he would not guarantee he isn't going to move around to different places in town. And that seemed awfully close to a solicitor's permit, so we went this direction.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
And a second? Second. And a second. Further discussion? All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Resolution 2013-04. Dave?
Yes, Mayor, this is resolution number 2013-04. This also has to do with the HISA matter that we addressed a little bit ago. 2013-04, the Council of the City of Buchanan authorizing, one, the city's hiring of special legal counsel, that is Bush, Zerbach, and Thompson, PLLC of Elkins, West Virginia, to represent the city's interest in that certain civil action styled Laura Lee N. Hissom versus the City of Buchanan and Matt Gregory. And two, to authorize the mayor of Buchanan, being Kenneth T. Davidson, to execute and deliver on the city's behalf that certain engagement letter with Bush, Zerbach, and Thompson, which is attached hereto and expressly made a part hereof. And three, to direct and authorize the city administrator, Michael Doss, to identify and establish the appropriate source of funding for payment for the legal services to be rendered and the expenses incurred during the city's legal representation in the foregoing civil action, and four, to authorize the mayor, city administrator, police chief Matt Gregory, and city attorney David McCauley to undertake all reasonable, necessary, or proper measures on the city's behalf in providing any and all information to Bush, Zerbach, and Thompson in generally facilitating the best possible defense of the city and police chief in the foregoing civil action. Then just real quickly, there's three whereases. Let me jump through them for you. Whereas by civil action filed on January 9, 2013 in the Federal District Court for the Northern District of West Virginia and served upon the city on March 27, 2013, former city police officer Laura Lee N. Hissom as plaintiff asserted various claims against the city of Buchanan and its police chief Matt Gregory, any entitlement by the plaintiff to prevail upon said claims of which the city council expressly refutes and denies. And whereas the city council now finds that there are sufficient reasons to engage special legal counsel in addition to city attorney David McCauley in the city's defense in the instant civil action, and whereas the governing body of any West Virginia municipal corporation is expressly empowered and authorized pursuant to state law to employ special legal counsel in lieu of or in addition to its city attorney, now therefore be it resolved by the council of the city of Buchanan as follows. The enumerated paragraphs essentially track those whereases. It's my recommendation that the council adopt this much needed resolution this evening.
Motion to approve 2013-04.
I move we approve 2013-04.
Second.
And second. All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Dave will need your signature here.
I'll get it before
Yeah,
you
we'll
go.
get it. Ordinance 374.
Real quickly, we discussed this on a draft basis at the last meeting, so unless you have any substantial questions, let me just do the captions and real quickly through the whereases, and if you have any questions, I'll address them. Ordinance number 374, the City of Buchanan. And Ordinance 1, prohibiting various activities at the City of Buchanan's solid waste transfer station and recycling center on Mudlick Road, and at the city's Crossroads Recycling Center. And 2, establishing penalties for persons violating the provisions of this ordinance. Whereas the City of Buchanan, by and through its Waste Collection Board, owns, operates, and maintains waste collection, waste transfer, and recycling facilities within or near the city's corporate limits in Upshur County, West Virginia, all as authorized pursuant to state statutes. And whereas the Waste Collection Board's facilities include 1, the primary location on Mudlick Road, just to the east of Buchanan's corporate limits, and 2, the Crossroads Recycling Center immediately adjacent to the Buchanan Walmart, And whereas problems have arisen respecting citizen drop-off procedures at the city's waste collection and recycling facilities, and whereas these problems include residents, 1, leaving general household waste and garbage at the gate of the city's transfer station on Mud Lick Road or at the Crossroads Recycling Center, 2, improperly mixing recyclables, particularly at the Crossroads Recycling Center, or 3, failing to properly insert recyclable materials into the designated repositories. And whereas the city's waste collection board incurs substantial cost and expense as a consequence of addressing the foregoing problems, and the city council desires to specifically declare such activities as being unlawful, and whereas Chapter 8, Article 12, Section 5, Paragraph 58 of the West Virginia Code grants plenary power and authority unto the City of Buckhannon's governing body to provide penalties for offenses and violations of law. Now therefore, be it ordained and enacted by the Council of the City of Buckhannon as follows. What follows are, in Article 1, the findings of council. Article 2, establishing the 5 different types of specifically prohibited activities. Article 3 are penalties, as is our custom with these potential offenses that are repeated by the same person. They start out with a fine as low as $100 and advance to $500. Article 4 is our form severability article. Article 5, effective date. If you pass this tonight on first reading, you would entertain it again at the meeting on May 18th, and the May 2nd. The effectuation date would be 30 days thereafter, which is June 2, 2013. It's my recommendation to the council this evening that you approve on the first of 2 readings, Ordinance 374.
Motion to approve ordinance number 374, first reading.
So move.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on this matter? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Comments and announcements. Ron?
I've got a whole list.
He's got a notepad.
I do. I had 2 complaints today about, I don't want to say this and not offend anybody out in the city, I don't know, but about property that is junky, noisy, fights, trash, possible drug activity near a trailer park near CVS, down where CVS is. Person lives in that area and said if we did anything at all, in addition to the smoking ban that we did, we should try to clean up some of these properties in town. And that was his request on that one. Then I had another complaint about the property on the corner of Barber and Ritchie today. A gentleman that works on the garbage truck said that every time he empties the garbage there, he said it is so full of roaches you wouldn't believe it, and they all go back inside the house. He can't imagine what the inside of the house is like, and he wonders why the health department or somebody can't go in there and do something about that property. Of course, you know my viewpoints on that property. It's in my neighborhood. So those were the 2 complaints that I had today. Along that line, the ordinance that the City of Huntington has recently passed about properties such as these, I believe we should start to consider an ordinance very similar to theirs so that we can clean up some of the blighted areas of town and at least put some teeth into what we've been trying to do. It's evident right now that we can't, according to the zoning officer and the fire chief and everybody else I've had on this, that they're breaking no laws, but it's unhealthy. I don't know how the neighbors around those places actually stand it when they see the roaches and the rats coming out of the buildings and everything like that. And I think we as a city council should, and as a city administration here, should be able to do something to correct these situations. And that's my comments tonight, except for please remember the people of Boston at the marathon, the first responders that were there. Also remember the first responders today in Waco, Texas at the fertilizer plant, where there were several officers and EMTs inside the building when it exploded. And God bless our nation, God bless our city.
Mitch?
Echo some of the same concerns, but also add to it I think the smoking ban has been well received by most everyone. There are some folks that are very much opposed to it. They'll probably be here next week, I understand. But I'm glad to see us move towards trying to look after the kids and the health of all of us. I think that's very important. That's all I have.
John?
I told the students that were here, share that I think we're all obviously very proud of them, but West Virginia Wesleyan College is not long behind them. I've been a part of a fourth meeting now, a group of students that brought that forward there. I think you'll see a soft launch of that in the late summer on all campus grounds, and then a hard launch in the spring, possible meeting with constituent groups, meeting with groups that use more tobacco than others to see their thoughts and see how we can make it work. But I think it's all come there from a student standpoint too. That's what's neat about it.
Dave?
I would like to go into a short executive session for a few minutes after the regular meeting, and involves litigation. But I applaud what and endorse what Ron was saying. You know, the mayor and I talked for a few minutes before the meeting tonight, and we have so many ordinances, and oftentimes they're not enforceable, or it's difficult to enforce them. And I just wish people, it seems like our society, we have to have so many rules and regulations. If people would just consider other people and be sensitive, we could do away with a lot of the rules and regulations. In that respect, I live on the corner of Arnold and Smithfield, and I sit out on my patio, and there are just too many people that run stop signs, and they're in neighborhoods where there's little children, and there's too many people in the city that go way too fast in residential areas. And we just need to start thinking about the unfortunate consequences. It probably may never happen, but there's always that possibility. And the same thing with people walking their dogs without cleaning up afterward, or letting dogs run loose in neighborhoods and so forth. We just need to be more sensitive to our neighbors and respectful. I think that's very important. And it's unfortunate in our society today, we have to have so many rules and regulations to protect people. I think it's a society that is it's a tidal wave of insensitivity, and it's unfortunate. That's all I'll say, but I would like to go into executive session.
We have one scheduled here.
Oh, okay.
For litigation.
Okay.
I want to ask you all how you want to proceed on selecting our next council person. We have five letters of interest. We could extend the time, or we could call that the number, and I think we'd have good reason to, because we said we were going to do it. And how do you want to proceed? Do you want to?
We never had a deadline out there as far as when they should indicate.
We really did not.
I think based on that, we should have at least maybe one more week for people that have an interest to submit it. So you might get another 2 or 3. I would make that recommendation first. And
so we would announce that we will take letters of interest until 4 p.m. on Thursday, May the 2nd, which is our next council meeting.
Well, you could actually have it May the 25th, which is one more week. I don't think you have to have it dovetail with the council meeting.
Okay.
But it gives them at least another week.
Another week, so that's 25th?
I think so.
4 p.m. the 25th, and we could meet and look at those. I mean, what's our procedure going to be? Let's agree on the procedure. We're going to review these applications that we have, or letters of interest that we have. As a council, we're going to get together and review those, and we're going to select some or all of them for interview. Our decision, right? and we're gonna hold interviews, and then we're gonna make a decision. Is that how we're gonna proceed?
Mr. Mayor, may I comment, please?
Sure, please do.
I realize we have a lot of people interested in this position, but my position is not going to change over what it was about another candidate in the other election. If a candidate runs for office and comes in second, I believe if there's a vacancy in that office, then the candidate that managed the time, effort, and money to run for that office, had the interest, should be the one to take the vacant position. I think that interviewing people is quite nice, but quite frankly, my vote in this is going to be for Tom O'Neill because he's the one that ran for the office and had the interest in it. And I would surely feel really disappointed had I been in his shoes and we considered somebody else that had not the problems and had not the, what do I want to say, but anyway, they didn't bother to run and just decided to be a councilman upon thinking he might get appointed to this position. I think it's wrong to do it that way, and I think that the only fair way would be to appoint the person that lost in the second place in the last election.
Can I make 2 comments?
Please do.
One is, we do have to do something for this vacancy now, but at some point in time, I guess I'd ask our city attorney, can we have an ordinance or resolution in the future that would make some decision for us so that we don't have to go through a process every time this happens? Can you have something that would take care of these kind of situations for the future, Dave, or we have to do this on an ad hoc basis?
The charter is very clear that the council establishes the approach to so many things, the way you run your meetings, the way that you fill appointments, where you're vulnerable with a resolution or an ordinance. Let's say that there's another vacancy 5 years down the road and the council's substantially different and there's an ordinance or a resolution out there and there's a vacancy. That council could say, you know what, we're not going to fill this vacancy yet. There's no timeframes that are required by the charter or the state statutes. We're going to repeal, city attorney, whoever that is, some old guy maybe, a young guy, repeal that resolution, repeal that ordinance. We're not going to follow that practice. We don't like who the runner-up is this time. We're going to change. So you can change a resolution or an ordinance like that. What's in the charter does not handcuff or manacle the city. You get to look at it time after time. And understand, I'm trying not to get too graphic here with the 6 or 7 vacancies that I've been around for the past 30 years. There have been some situations where the council was very happy to welcome that next vote-getter in. And if that would have been what would have been required by the charter or by state statute, in a couple of other instances, I think there would have been some mass resignations from the city council. I mean, that's just the way it works. It's
But
not.
would that have happened, Dave, had that person been elected? Would they have had mass resignations because of it? I mean, let's be fair about the whole thing.
Here's one example. I'm not getting into any names, but there was a situation late 80s, early 90s. It was one of the off cycles. It might have been even before we went to 4-year terms. It was the city recorder and 2 council people running for office. 3 people filed for council seats. The city recorder, typically, back in the Poundstone show days, there was no contest. Nobody ever ran against them. For the 2 city council seats, 3 people filed. And one of the persons, I think, got 12 votes. And do you want to bridle yourself with having to do that in those instances? That's all I'm saying to you, is that you have a lot of flexibility, and you can do exactly what Mr. Pugh's advocating if that's what you want to do this time. But in the future, there might be another time where maybe that's not what you want to be confined.
Or a future council may feel differently about it. But as you point out, the charter simply says that the council shall
fill the vacancy.
The
state statute says too.
And the state statute says the governing body shall.
That's correct.
Do we have to fill the vacancy? It's only 14 months.
It says shall. I think
shall means move on.
Well, there's also the issue that Scott, as an individual, didn't run in the most recent election also.
So then the question would be, would someone in the election, during the election when she ran, where the seat was being filled, would that person have just as much claim to it that came in that election?
Well, that's-
He wasn't a part of the most recent.
Yeah, we're looking back to
Right.
an election, and Scott's position was not being contested.
Yeah, but
So, I mean, there's, I think if we take a look at the qualifications, if you want to consider the number of votes somebody got in the last election as one of the qualifications, if you want to look at an education level, if you want to look at whatever you color their hair or whatever,
No, you can't do that.
Mr. Mayor,
I can, you can.
We'll talk about that later.
I really don't like, I think the charter really does, this is bringing up again the charter, I think it really does need to be investigated again about putting it on the ballot again to make changes. But I don't like the idea of council having an arbitrary way of doing this, depending on what it is. I think it should be set in law, and that's the way it should be followed. It should not be that a future council may not like this person that ran, whether they like him or not. Some of us don't like officers that we've got elected in other forms of government, but there are officers and they were elected. I think that we should do something to eliminate this indecisions about how to do something. And I don't know, maybe it'll die here right now, but I'm going to make the motion right now that we accept Tom O'Neill as our next council member to fill the vacancy created by Scott Preston.
With all due respect, Mayor, that is not on your agenda this evening. I understand
Okay.
Mr. Pugh's motion, that motion could be made if it's on your agenda for the May 2nd meeting, but you really can't do that this evening.
Thank you for your...
I would like to say one other thing that I think is important, is that we are extending until next Thursday, the 25th at 4 p.m. We've already made that decision.
That wasn't on the agenda either.
Okay.
Well, we didn't make a motion on that.
Okay.
It wasn't on the agenda either.
But I think what's important from my perspective is we're talking about this in an open way, and all the names are out there. Because I've been on council before when there was an opening. And the council members, many of us, didn't know who had indicated an interest. And it was never brought to our attention. So with Kenny reading the 5 people that have indicated an interest,
let's give way to some of our industrial and economical growth here.
Where's the noise ordinance?
They're exempt.
So I'm glad it's an open, transparent process because it hasn't been before, and that's very important for us. And David does make a point, I think.
Yeah, he does.
About flexibility sometimes. We need flexibility, but I also agree with what you're saying, Ron. Maybe as Kenny indicated, I don't care what color hair they have or what gender they are, but what their educational experience is and what qualifications they have. And if somebody received a lot of votes in an election, that's something to give serious weight to.
Well, it certainly is, David, but there also are no qualifications for running for the office except that you be a resident.
And have the ability to be a voter and
Yeah, a voter.
But that has qualifications to it because of, can't have a felony record and.
Oh, I know you can't have a felony, but I can remember some people that have been on council before didn't have a high school education.
We're not talking about education, but there are requirements.
Sure there are. The normal requirements is eligibility to vote and be a citizen, right, yeah. Those are requirements, but they're not determinations.
Just 2 more quick comments. And
Our charter says that they have to be taxpayers.
That's correct. I don't know that,
Without
given the
a lot of-
1950 Supreme Court decision on lots of things, including jurors having to be taxpayers, I don't know that would hold legal water for this challenge. I mean, you gotta remember that 1930 charter where everything.
Everybody pays sales tax.
Just two.
Property tax.
They meant residency, I think.
Two more quick things. Dave Thomas partially reiterated correctly what I said. It is not my position, personal opinion, that things are supposed to be flexible. That's what's in the statute and the charter, is that flexibility to the council. Personally, I might go with Mr. Pugh, that it makes sense to do the runner-up thing, but the statute and the charter are clear. And Dave Thomas also asked the question about, could you leave the position open? I don't think that's the spirit of the law, even though there's nothing in the law that says that. The mandate, I think the language is shall in both the charter and the statute. And in the spirit of good government, you want to have a fully assembled body. There were some cases initiated during the past 3 presidential administrations when federal judicial appointments weren't being filled. The president was making nominations and the Congress was the other party, and they were waylaying, filibustering consideration of those appointments. And some people who had been nominated brought an action against the Congress to make them move it along. So in the big picture, I think it just makes sense that as government, you want to fill that seat as reasonably soon as possible.
I would hope that we do things here a lot better than Congress does.
Let's hope.
All right, I'm going to announce, it's not on the agenda, but I'm going to announce that we will accept letters of interest for the council position until April the 25th.
It's a Thursday.
At 4 p.m. After that, we will accept no more, and we will distribute copies of all that to council members so they can be looking at it. And
we're going to be here at 4 p.m.
and we will take this issue up at our next council meeting on May 2nd. Another item that I would like for us to talk about, we always have this issue with Thursday night council meeting during the Strawberry Festival. And I would recommend that we cancel the meeting for May the 16th. If there are issues that burn, we can always call a special. Meaning that we-
So move.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? Well, there have been times when I could not make a recommendation to get that kind of a response. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
I've already heard you vote.
Can I make another comment, Kenny?
Yep.
On that? I also think it's important for the city council and the county commissioners to have a meeting sometime
Yes.
in the future, because we have not done that for quite a while. And there are some reports from the Economic Development Authority that I think would be very informative to the residents of the city and the county in regard to some special reports and surveys and so forth that were done. Plus, I think we ought to meet with them once in a while. I think it's important for the planning of the future of both entities.
The next fifth Thursday is May the 30th.
May the 30th.
I want to note that I have no problem with May the 30th, but we need to remember our folks down the street meet every Thursday.
Right.
Except a fifth Thursday. The last time we scheduled a fifth Thursday meeting, they were not in town. I just suggest
Yeah,
we could meet with them any day of the week, any evening.
Right.
And maybe the fifth Thursday is not the most convenient day to try to get everybody together. Just an observation.
And maybe they could, if they meet every Thursday, there might be one Thursday every 3 or 4 months where they could meet in the evening during a regular time and not have their, 9 o'clock meeting they have?
Yeah, they have a morning meeting every 4 months. They don't meet on the fifth Thursday. So if they're going to try to get out of town for a week or so, that's the week they usually schedule. But whatever. I mean, I
just think we need to meet with them.
I tell you,
occasionally.
One of the reasons that I've kind of gotten away from it is, to be really frank about it, we'll have a meeting up at the county commission office, and 2 or 3 of Buchanan City Council show up. And that's not a meeting. And if, I'll try to set something up that meets their schedule and let you all know, and we'll get with them. But I'm gonna charge you to come.
I also think the commissioners ought to meet at least once a month in a different part of the county every quarter. And
We
so
tried
can
that
go
too.
around, you know, like the Supreme Court does.
But in defense of them, they can't make a decision anywhere except in the courthouse. We could go out and have a meeting somewhere else and make a decision, but they can't. The statute says they gotta be in the courthouse.
I think we should do that once in a while.
Okay. Executive session litigation 698-4, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, the ayes have it, that means y'all can go. Thank y'all for coming.
Bye.